Memento mori moment 9. Was it the Philistines who saved David? David had lived through one success after another and had become the most popular man in Israel. The shepherd boy defeated Goliath, became a commander in Saul's army, and even married the king's daughter. Whenever David returned from battle, the women sang, "Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands." But the more the people loved David, the more deeply Saul envied him. Saul hurled a spear at David, sent soldiers to watch his house, and finally led an army himself to hunt him down. The king's son-in-law became a fugitive, and the commander of Israel's army was now being chased by that same army. Those who were distressed, in debt, or discontented gathered around David, and he led them through wildernesses and mountains. When David heard that Saul was coming to Keilah, he escaped from the town with his men and fled through the wilderness of Ziph toward the desert of Maon. There, on a mountain in Maon, David and his men were finally surrounded. David was on one side of the mountain, while Saul and his soldiers closed in from the other. David's men hid behind a great rock, but there was nowhere left to run. The sling that had brought down Goliath, the strategy that had won so many battles, and David's position as the king's son-in-law could no longer save them. Crouching behind the rock, they could only wait to be discovered. Saul's men pressed in from both sides, and the sound of their voices and weapons came closer and closer. "Is this where it ends? Will all those who followed me die here with me?" That was David's memento mori moment. Then, in the distance, a messenger came running toward Saul. "Come quickly! The Philistines have invaded the land." With David almost in his grasp, Saul had no choice but to stop the pursuit and turn back to fight the Philistines. The footsteps of the soldiers faded away, and silence returned to the mountain. David and his men rose from behind the rock, like men who had returned from the dead. Who had saved David? Was it the Philistines? Was it the nameless messenger who brought the news to Saul? Or was it God opening a path for David through war and events that appeared accidental? David called that place Sela Hammahlekoth, the rock of separation, where the paths of Saul and David divided. At that moment, the hero who proved God's presence through courage and victory died, and a fugitive was born who could trust God's presence even when he was powerless to act. David had already declared before Goliath, "The battle belongs to the Lord," but in the wilderness of Maon, he learned another meaning of those words. God's help did not always appear as victory through David's own hands. Sometimes, when he had no strength left to fight, a path to life opened from a place he could never have expected. David later sang, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." The Bible does not say that David wrote Psalm 23 in the wilderness of Maon, nor does it say that David and his men gathered behind one great rock, waiting for the moment they would be discovered. Those details and the connection with Psalm 23 are an imaginative reconstruction of the silence in the text. But the Bible clearly records that just as Saul was closing in on David, a messenger arrived with news of a Philistine invasion, and Saul had to abandon the pursuit. At Sela Hammahlekoth, David did not fight and win. He survived. The hero who defeated Goliath already possessed the faith to face an enemy and win. But the man who would become king also needed the faith to trust that God was with him when victory was impossible. Does faith always mean receiving the strength to defeat an enemy? Or does it mean trusting that God is with us even in the valley of death, when we still cannot see a way to live?